Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. This is a series we'll talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today I wanted to talk about borders because as you probably know by now, not all borders are firm and hard on Google Maps, but some of these actually use the dashed line to represent that Google doesn't really know who owns this. Or to be more specific, different countries disagree about who owns this territory. Take for example the Crimean Peninsula. This is a piece of territory that Ukraine and most of the world says belongs to Ukraine. And Russia, on the other hand, says that nah, this belongs to Russia, and they are the ones that actually administer the area, that collect taxes and do the laws and stuff. And so who does this really belong to? Google just takes the hands-off approach and says, yeah, it could belong to anyone really. This could be a border or it could not be. It's very interesting, the approach they take. I think the much fairer approach is the way Wikipedia does it, where if we took it Sevastopol, they'll be like, what country is Sevastopol a part of? Well, it's officially de jure a part of Ukraine, but de facto it's a part of the nation of Russia. And so this is a territorial dispute between two nations, and these exist all of the time. As you can tell looking at this map of all the territorial disputes, it's not just Ukraine and Russia having disputes, or Russia and all of these nations having disputes, but nations have disputes all of the time, like Denmark having this weird feud with both Canada over this tiny island that is halfway between Greenland, a part of Denmark, the Kingdom of Denmark, I should say, and Canada. Like, again, you can kind of see how that's disputed. It's kind of close to Canada over here. It's close to Denmark over here, and so they dispute it. It's not a very big deal. And then also over Rockall. Rockall is this little tiny granite inlet. It is so tiny that you can't even really spot it on Google Maps. And the only reason that it's disputed between Denmark, the UK, my country, and indeed Iceland is because of the fishing and oil rights for the seabed that's around it. So there are disputes like this all the time, usually over very insignificant things that you don't hear about all of the time. But what if I was to tell you that there is a country that has disputes with about 16 other countries? And what if I said that their disputes are so big, the disagreement between the territory they think they own and the difference between the territory that they really own is so big that it's a factor of about 300 times. That's right, there is a nation on Earth that claims 300 times the territory that it actually controls, and today I wanted to go through what it is. And no, it's not a joke about how the US thinks they own the world, although, that would be a fun joke too. Or, it's not a joke about how, like, some countries like Brazil have such tiny disputes, like, Uruguay and Brazil are, like, fully disputing over who owns this tiny island, the Brazilian island, it seems, right here, which, by the way, this dispute leaves the border with Argentina in question, so, where does one country start and end? Actually, I wonder, on Google Maps, have they picked a side? Because here's the interesting thing. There's a lot of territorial disputes that Google Maps doesn't pick a side on, like with Crimea and Sevastopol, or like with Rockall, it doesn't really need to. I think Han Island is probably a more interesting case. Can we find it? Oh, see, they've decided to claim this in the favor. Oh wait, is this? Yeah, I think they've decided to claim it in the favor of Denmark, which is very interesting, right? But yeah, it's interesting because all sorts of territorial disputes exist, and Google picks a side in some of them. And so let's see what they've done with the Brazilian island. I'm incredibly curious about this one. See that here they've gone with like, ooh, yeah, we're not really so sure about where the border is there, which is endlessly fascinating to me that like sometimes Google picks a side, sometimes they don't. Here's one that like, even though I agree that the people agree with it, Google agrees that Gibraltar is oh no, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it does. It's a part of the UK. Or does it actually? I think it doesn't anymore. Okay, so that's interesting. Because if you look on this map right here, you can see that Spain and the UK, Spain has a lot of territorial disputes, but one of those is over Gibraltar, which is a territory that was captured in the 1704 War of Spanish Succession, and it's been owned by the UK ever since. It is super weird when you think about it, that this is UK sovereign territory. It's the only monkeys that exist in Europe. There's a lot of cute things about this place. Do you want to look at it real quick? Let's look real quick at the monkeys of Gibraltar. Okay, no monkeys, just a rock. Very interesting place. Very weird that this is the UK, I'll admit, on a lot of levels. But yeah, the interesting thing about this place is that Google picks sides in some disputes and not others. And here is the most interesting one to me, because it's interesting because I totally agree with Google's position that Taiwan is recognized as an independent nation. Like, not all the way. You can't click on it and see its territory. But it does say, as you can see, it's a country in East Asia. And you can see that it's got very distinct borders, despite the fact that Google does not recognize China's claims to say, their disputed border with India. You can see how messy and complex it is to work out where one country ends and begins. And in fact, if you look at most territorial disputes, because there's this fun list of territorial disputes, which is incomplete, and I can help by adding to it, by the way. So I'm just saying, anyone want to start some territorial disputes with me? Maybe you're a part of Norway, and we disagree about who owns this island right here, I'm just saying, actually this one. I want this island. I think the UK owns it, and I will one day become the foreign secretary just to make claims on Skjerdingen. There we go. That was definitely good Norwegian. Yeah, it will be our island soon, so we'll rename it Scunthorpe 2. It'll be great. But anyway, so if you look at the map of disputes, you'll find out very quickly that lots of those disputes belong to one country, the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China is this blue nation. Maybe you guys have heard of it. I don't know for sure. Let me know, have you heard of China? It's one of those vague countries people forget about a lot, so just let me know in the comments if you've heard of China. And basically, so a lot of people haven't heard of China, but it's this country in blue right here. Looks kind of funny. And they disagree with a lot of countries about who owns what. The red countries here, in fact, by the way, are just the list of active disputes that China has with another country about who owns a particular piece of land, sea, or anything else like that. And they actually have 10 other disputes that they've resolved. The reason this is interesting is because they have these huge disagreements, and these huge disagreements kind of pass on to the Republic of China, which, as I mentioned before, we call Taiwan. Taiwan is the Republic of China. The China that we know is the People's Republic of China. To very simplify the issue here, the China, before it was a communist country, was ruled by a very authoritarian government, and the communists pushed the authoritarian government out and out and out and out and out. I mean, saying authoritarian government when you're talking about communists as the other side is not a helpful dichotomy. Let's just say that there was the blues and there was the reds. And the reds, the communists, pushed the blues out of China more and more and more until eventually all they controlled was Taiwan Island. And there was always this eventual suggestion that they would take over the rest of the mainland. And China, and the communist China also had this insistence that eventually they'd also get the blues out of the last bit of China they controlled, but it never happened. The war ended, and Taiwan, the Republic of China, existed over here, whereas the People's Republic of China had the vast majority of the territory, but neither side stopped claiming the other one in its entirety. The China, in fact, at the UN, was represented by Taiwan until the 70s, because the world recognized this little island as being the sole successor to all of this China. However, in the years since, the power balance has flipped. Have you guys heard about the rise of China? I hear they're doing pretty well these days. Anyway, so China's been doing pretty well these days, and now the situation has flipped, and they want Taiwan to never stop acknowledging that China is one entity, and they just disagree about who that one entity is. And there's reasons for this, but to show you the issue here, China warns that Taiwan independence, i.e. recognizing what is actually true, that Taiwan is an independent nation, would mean war, as the US pledges support. They are actively making threats that, yeah, if you claim that you are independent, as we both know you are, but we are not allowed to acknowledge, we will invade you, and we'll make sure that you're not independent for long. And who knows as to how that war would go, by the way. It's one of those fascinating little debates. But my point here is that Taiwan has to keep claiming all of the territory in China that they don't, in reality, make any attempt at controlling. So that is the important backdrop to now explain that because of this, China, obviously, and by the way, they don't just claim to own China, they claim to own China as of 1949 or whenever they pushed out to Taiwan. They have not made any agreements about changes to that territory because they don't really they don't really have these great claims that one day they'll take it. Taiwan at this point, I'm sure, is acknowledged. They're a small country. They're doing much better per person than China. They've got all these unique industries and all this unique... Taiwan has kind of moved on past the stage where they think they can be a superpower. And so they're not making big negotiations about all these things, but they still claim all of this territory, which is where this map comes in. This is a map of the Republic of China according to the Republic of China. The Republic of China... obviously being Taiwan, has not made any agreements with any of these countries because none of these countries would seriously sit down at the table with Taiwan about territory that they're nowhere near and have no claim to. And so they have the exact borders that existed in 1949 or 47 or before they had to leave China behind. And so this means that Mongolia, which is administered by the Republic of Mongolia, it's claimed by the Republic of China. China did not recognize Mongolia at the time. They thought it was a part of their territory, and so it's theirs. The disputes they had with Russia, that China has resolved in a pretty decent way, honestly, if you look into that. As you can see right here, Russia did not make an agreement with the Republic of China, and so Russia has a disagreement over there. Also, a part of Russia, that is part of Mongolia. Whatever, it's a thing. Also, the Tajik autonomous province of Gorno-Badakhshan is claimed by the ROC still. Also administered by Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bhutan. We've got Myanmar, and you can see that all of these areas, because if we go back to this list of territorial disputes, all of these areas that China currently has issues with are technically disputed with the Republic of China. So if we look at the map right here, and you can see, for instance, that like, okay, if we look at the current disputes, technically speaking, this is Taiwan's C2, so they have to argue about all these various island chains and who really owns them. In this case with Japan, right, where it's like, ooh, China thinks that they're theirs because this is China. Taiwan acknowledges that this is Taiwan, and so really it should be theirs. And Japan is like, nah, that's definitely ours. And so, yeah, they are basically a part of Japan by de facto, but really, you'd look at them and you'd say they should be a part of Taiwan, and then if they should be a part of Taiwan, then China says, oh, who do you think Taiwan is? I think you'll find that Taiwan is a part of us. And so, yeah, this is it's an endlessly fascinating debate, but this map right here is the one that shows that the Republic of China, this tiny area right here, claims all of this. And just to do the back of the envelope maps for you, the area of Taiwan is 36,000 square kilometers. The area of China is 9.5 million square kilometers. If I did my math correctly, and I really do not believe I did, 30 times this is like a million, then times that by another 9.5, and you get about 300 times the area that is claimed by this tiny little island that is not controlled by that island, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the biggest difference between territory a country fully legally claims to own, but does not actually have any foothold or administrative region in. We could give examples of stuff like this where like countries claim a thing, but it makes no difference as to how the thing actually is. Like, you know, Morocco is a little upset with Spain for these little parts of Morocco that they think were ceded under weird colonial agreements, but like Spain says, this is Spain, this is a part of Spain, this is the EU border right here. It's a very interesting thing, right? You know, like, who really controls the area? Is it the people who have the moral high ground, or is it the people who like live there and you know, make the laws and have the you know, etc. You know, that's the big dispute here. And so in reality, even though the Republic of China, Taiwan, doesn't have any they're never going to start a war with Tajikistan over that, you know, autonomous province, or they're never going to go to war with Afghanistan over their disagreements about this border, which is, by the way, just to remind you, the distance between the territory that Taiwan controls and the territory they dispute is 4,500 kilometers. It would be hilarious for the memes if it happened. Don't get me wrong, internet. I understand that one. But yeah, China and Taiwan have a very interesting dispute. And just while we're here anyway, I have some maps I'd like to show you. Here is the map of places you can go to an Arby's without a visa, because Arby's is a chain in a lot of countries, a very fun thing. And here is a list of countries where you need a visa to go to an Arby's. Very fun, I know, you appreciate that. But also, here's one of my favorite ones that it doesn't fit into any video, but I wanted to show this forever. This is insane to think about. Size of the Greater Tokyo area, size of Greater London. Fascinating but untrue, Tokyo is in Japan, not England. And this is actually correct. This is an inaccurate map, if you would believe it, that the Greater Tokyo area is in fact not over there. And you know, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I do recommend checking out the map of disputed territories if you want to read about asinine disagreements about very random things like, ooh, Kazakhstan has a disagreement about the Baikonur Cosmodrome, which was leased to Russia till 2050, and you know, they think only getting $115 million a year is not very good. They want to have some more, but they signed a lease. I mean, you know, how do sovereign nations deal with leases? It's very complex in a whole bunch of places. But speaking of things that are complex in a bunch of places, this video has come to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then, I don't know, like, or whatever people do on YouTube these days. You can become a patron if you want to improve these videos' qualities. I'm just kidding. They're going to stay exactly flat. No improvements whatsoever. But you can give me money that I will use to buy small luxuries in life like lobster rolls at patreon.com/toycat. Thank you for watching. Second channel. Don't care. Goodbye.